to start here with you, Gina and Reggie, and learn about the origin story. How did this project come to you guys, and what made you want to make this happen?
Wow, so funny that you say origin story because that was such a big part of our conversation in terms of the process. But Nat Geo and Brian Graves and Imagine Entertainment wanted to do a season 4 of Genius, and they wanted to do one about Dr. King. And they were out to various creators, and it came our way. And we knew we had something special. And so when we pitched it to them, we essentially said, you don't get to have Martin without Malcolm. And you don't get to have Malcolm without Martin.
Yeah.
And we explained to them why they were two sides of the same coin. We also said you don't get to have Coretta without Betty and Betty without Coretta.
Yeah.
And that was just really a big part of the vision, to just really dispel some of the things that people always think about when they talk about Martin and Malcolm.
And also, we wanted to be really intentional about the casting and be able to reflect these icons, these geniuses at the ages that they really were. And, you know, Martin was 26 during the Montgomery bus boycott. So I think a lot of times people forget how young they were when they were achieving these amazing things. So going in, we knew we wanted to have that as part of the vision as well.
Yeah. And really, Reggie, I feel like the origin for this series for you probably started very early in your career with the meeting. I love that story, and I would love for you to share that with the audience, just how that played a role in helping you ultimately shape the story that we see in this anthology.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because I really feel like this was in the making before it was actually officially in the making. But in the 80s, I saw a really great play called The Meeting, written by a great playwright named Jeff Stetson. And The Meeting is really takes, it's about a fictional meeting between Dr. King and Malcolm. They meet in a hotel and they discuss their points of view. And in that narrative, you really get to see where they contrasted and where they aligned. And really, he painted a narrative where they were more similar than, dissimilar, right? And so that was like a really great grounding for what we wanted to do. So many times we've been taught that we have to choose between the two of them. And so really just felt like, I guess the other part of it is that this story is in many ways a coming of age of our characters. That's why I like the term origin story. But also America has had many coming of ages, right?
Yeah.
The civil rights movement is another coming of age, and it really allowed us to lean into it in that way.
Yeah. You know, this is a great place to bring in Damien and Raphael, because for so long, history has kind of pitted these two men against each other, but the heart of this story really shows how similar they were in their mission. I would love to hear where you guys started, you know, with really helping to shape the story, and what was it that you really wanted to see and the audience to see by weaving their stories together?
I'll take it. Yeah, no, one of the biggest things that we wanted to illuminate with this story were the moments before the moments. So we all know the March on Washington, the Montgomery bus boycott, the by any means necessary speech. What interested us and what Reggie and Gina were extremely behind was taking us into the moments before that, because that was who these two men were, and in particular, illuminating their relationships with Betty and Coretta. We didn't just want to treat Betty and Coretta as the wives of. We wanted those to feel like they were the number ones on the call sheet as well. And so going into this, we wanted the audience to have an aha moment every episode, and also I did not know that about them personally moment. And so that's what we strive for. And thankfully we had an incredible writer's room, and Jeff Stetson, who Reggie mentioned, wrote the pilot, was one of us, and it helped us get into the insight into who these people were on a grander scale.
Definitely, and just to add to that, you know, we were blessed to have a think tank before we started, and that was a big part of the process of crafting the show, because a lot of times within, you know, when you're crafting a series, you don't have the time to really dive into the details within it. And part of what Reggie and Gina really kind of pushed forward, which we adopted, was getting scholars who knew Martin and Malcolm, Betty and Coretta, before we even put pen and pad within our scripts. And so, you know, we had, again, Jeff Stetson, you know, we had Neil Joseph, who wrote Sword and the Shield. We had Dr. Barbara Reynolds. We also had, Ambassador Shabazz, who is Malcolm's daughter. So we had a great think tank before we even put pen to pad, and that was very important for us to begin to kind of craft the story overall, to kind of see what we can kind of begin to kind of put forward as far as the story of Martin and Malcolm. Because they only met once. They only met once, but there was so
Really?
much.
What?
There was so much within their journey to where they were speaking to each other at the same time. And that was part of what we really wanted to begin to kind of outline and show how they each spoke to each other, to where it wasn't necessarily so much them being rivals or opposition, but it was them also working together for the same cause. So that was a big thing.
No, absolutely. And I want to get a little nerdy if I can about that think tank, because I loved hearing that story, and that feels like a very unique experience, I think, to what normally might happen, even when you're looking at something historical on television. Tell me a little bit more about that, and how did maybe some of the information that you got from either the scholars or even the family members themselves help further shape the story, or even take you in a direction that maybe you hadn't anticipated going as storytellers?
I mean, I've said this before, but I have a degree in history. So when we all got together, I was very confident, kind of cocky, about what I thought I knew about Martin and Malcolm. And we did it on Zoom, and all of us are now Zoomites. So about 10 minutes into this conversation, I'm chatting with Raphael, like, I didn't know that. Damn, I didn't know this. And so as we were having those moments on that Zoom with the group of folks that we were with, that kind of shaped the narrative that we wanted to go forward, is that we wanted our audience to come into this quite confident that they think they know Martin and Malcolm. These are two of the greatest American heroes of all time. And we should have a baseline of information about them, but to Reggie's point and to yours, the origins of where those perspectives came from, a lot of us did not know. And so our job is to give an entertaining, illuminating television show. So we wanted to do both. We wanted our audience to come into it, not treat it like a homework assignment where they're gonna be talked at. We wanted them to feel like, damn, I didn't know Martin and Malcolm were obsessed with ice cream. I didn't know Malcolm could dance. I didn't know how funny Martin was, that he played pool. I didn't know that Coretta was an opera singer. I didn't know Dr. Betty Shabazz had this innate ability and desire to want to be a part of something bigger than herself. Those kinds of things were for us more important than, hey, let's just do a paint by numbers on why the March on Washington happened.
Yeah.
And so a little long-winded, I apologize, but that was a big thing for us with the think tank.
Not long-winded at all, I promise.
Okay, I'll keep talking.
Because I have a degree in history, and I love that, because that really kind of shows out, I think, in the anthology. You wanted to add something to that, Reggie?
Well, just one point of clarity. This is the first time that Gene and I came up with an idea that neither one of us either wrote or directed. And so we were so fortunate to bring in these showrunners. I'm not accustomed to saying nice things to them, but in public, I kind of have to. But this think tank was really incredible, because Gene and I met on the writer's room of A Different World. In A Different World, we did, we would do like this intense research, and we would travel to Spelman and Morehouse, and now we're in this pandemic era, but it was really fun to sort of like bring back this process of in-depth research, really to not just get at, as Dame said, the academic stuff, but the personal.
Yeah. Kelvin and Aaron, how did this project, come to both of you all, and what did you think about telling the story of two very familiar men in 2024, why that made sense?
You got the job first, eh?
Oh my God. Well, I came onto the show because Aaron was attached to the show. And I was like, really, listen, when I first heard about it, I got really scared, because I was like, okay, I was 26 at the time, and I know that Martin was, I didn't actually know at the time that Martin was 26 when the Montgomery bus boycott happened. But I was like thinking, because of the depictions prior to me, I was like, everyone seems so old and like mature, and I was like, I feel like I'm just trying to pay my rent in New York. So I didn't really see how it would be the appropriate casting choice, and then I heard that Aaron attached, and I was like, Aaron's a fantastic actor, and I was like, I would love to work with another young actor that's doing great work. And then Reggie and Gina were on it, and I was like, okay, well, I worked with them on Shots Fired for a little bitty part years ago when I just started acting, and I Zoomed with them and Damien and Raph, and they basically were just explaining to me, it was like, well, your imposter syndrome and your fear of not feeling like you're mature enough or old enough or have all the answers yet are exactly what these men had and what they were going through at the time, and you could offer that to the role, and maybe there's more grounding and truth in that depiction of it. So I kind of embraced it, and I had to kind of put my my insecurities aside and be obedient and just kind of find the essence of the truth in the portrayal. So yeah.
Yeah. Aaron, how about yourself? That was great. That was great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I was in New Orleans at the time, doing a film, and I got a call on Malcolm X's birthday.
Wow.
They knew what they was doing.
Energy, right?
So I started looking at the sky. I'm like, right. So I got a call. They let me know that I had the offer for the role to portray El-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz Malcolm X, and I guess if somebody had told me that that would have ever happened to me, I would have assumed that my immediate response would have been to say yes on the spot. But I felt this overwhelming fear and this overwhelming paranoia that I didn't have the capacity, like Kelvin said, I didn't have the endurance, the durability, the life experience, the bandwidth, and just the wherewithal to do it for 6 months. So I kind of didn't say yes straight away, and then got back to the thing I was doing and tried to distract myself from it. And then I just felt like it would be, I just feel like, you know, God doesn't put things in your path that you don't have the capacity to engage with and manage. So I trusted in that. As my Jamaican mother says, I walked in faith, and you know, we came on board the project, and you know, I pray and I hope that we serve them as they deserve to be served and celebrated and championed.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. There is that really great line, women are the backbone of every movement. Obviously, I'm kicking it over to Ruche and Jamie. I want to know how this project came to you, but also, how did you prepare yourself for the project? And I think the bigger question too is, you know, what was it like once you had that realization that the women would not be forgotten and just accessories in this story, that they actually had a lot to give to this anthology in particular?
I think that was a selling point, more than anything. I don't know if you can tell by my accent, I'm British. And so this was an incredible opportunity, first of all, to be or try to walk in the shoes of someone as incredible as Coretta. But it was a massive education for myself. It was a lovely opportunity to be like, okay, I actually want to know more about these people, because I'm definitely walking right now in the spaces I am because of the things that they did. But the selling point truly was to elevate the women and show that, as Damien said, that they were all equal partners in the movement. I think the general conception has been the men were the only ones there, but we've come to realize that the men would not have been who they were, would not have made the impact they did on the world as we know it without the partners that they chose. Good, right? And it changed my perspective as well. I mean, personally, it allowed me to understand the strength that these women had. They had to handle so much. And yes, I mean, we all know about them, but I think Genius did a fantastic job in bringing them more to the forefront. And I put some respect on their names, even more to, you know, like I said, to recognize that the men wouldn't have been who they were. Because we also know that these men were taken from their wives quite early. And the wives were the ones who continued their legacies for generations afterwards. And after we're gone, people are still going to learn about them. And I think that's also massively because of the partners they had. So having the opportunity to bring that to the forefront, to be part of it, was such an honor. And yeah. I'm still reeling from it. It's a lot, but I'm grateful. Thanks.
Listen, the chills that are going through my body when you said that, I mean, that was a very powerful statement. Thank you for reminding us all that they really did continue these legacies long after their partners were gone too soon. Jamie, how about yourself?
I mean, everything that Maruche said, it was a selling point for me. It's so easy, and I think history does a really good job of making it seem as though women have never had a voice. And that all of a sudden there is this new crop or new generation that is fighting for a level of agency. And when they told us that they wanted to not have it be the women behind the men, but the women beside the men, I said, yeah, that's something I'm interested in, and highlighting highlighting all the nuance within Black women as well. Oftentimes with such powerful men, we look at the women of having to be these silent, strong partners, but really getting into the nuance of the difficulties and how they came to be the women that we knew the pictures of, right? Because they weren't always that. They had their own challenges, and right, I think it's episode 5, we get to really see their upbringing, the women's upbringing, to see how did they become who we think we know them to be. But yeah, I was very interested in just giving honor to these women that most people don't really know about or think they know enough. People think they know enough about Coretta and Dr. Betty Shabazz, and I think everybody here did a really good job to show that there's more to know about these women.
Absolutely. You guys keep sending chills through my spine, and I love it. You know, in this show, you guys all recreate that really historic moment, which, to my surprise, and like a lot of people here, I thought I knew a lot about MLK and Martin Luther King Jr. That was the only time that Martin and MLK actually met, was right on the steps of the Capitol, the day the Civil Rights Act was signed. I would love to hear about what filming was like that day, and how you guys all prepared for that moment, to bring that, the only picture too that they actually took together to life.
I mean, I'll take the behind the scenes of it. The day, and Raph and I talk about this a lot. So we filmed our entirety of our series in Atlanta. And side note, it's humbling to be driving down Martin Luther King Boulevard, Ralph Abernathy Drive, Andrew Young Parkway every day to go film things about these people. But that day we filmed it at the Capitol building in Atlanta. And we actually, if I'm not mistaken, were the last series to be able to film there. So we had the pressure of having to nail that because we weren't gonna get another shot. There was a build-up. It was the first time that we had these guys cross paths on camera. And it was the first time the entire crew showed up that was not working to be there.
Wow.
Because taking an opportunity like this, taking a show like this, we've all worked on other things where it's a paycheck job or it's a vanity job. This one was, in offering this job to folks, there was a sense of responsibility to every single person on the crew. And so for that particular day, knowing we were gonna recreate that iconic photo, everybody, folks who no business being there, showed up to see these two guys do what they did. So from behind the scenes, it was a really beautiful thing.
It was fun. There's a certain sense of, within that moment, where when you were able to have Martin and Malcolm, Kelvin and Aaron be in the same arena, same scene, same environment. There's a certain energy that prevailed for the cast and crew overall. That was incredible. And so I think because we shot that, I think, very early on, if I'm not mistaken. And it really kind of set the tone for our cast and crew as far as the tenor of how we wanted to kind of control and really set forward what we were trying to create within it. And so that scene is one where we look at it was obviously historically important, but also what we were doing within trying to capture that moment, you felt it within the setting. And so again, I use it akin to like it's two prize fighters fighting, to where you have Martin and Malcolm, and then you think they're going to fight, and then it's there, and you feel that energy, but what's important is the story that we're trying to tell within it. And that was really what we captured within that day, so.
I just wanted to add that, you know, our two sons influence so much of what Reg and I do, and that iconic picture was in both of their rooms since birth. So to be able to now be able to put that to the world and let more people know about it. But it's such a powerful moment, but it's also heartbreaking because you see this and you understand, you see their connection, and you just wish that they could have had the time, because they were absolutely on the way to making that more of a reality.
And it was just also very deliberate. That was one of the opening images of this film. Like, we think of this 8-hour film.
Yeah.
It was very deliberate that we're opening up, you know, in the Capitol, particularly coming off of everything that we've seen happen in the Capitol, you know, as of late. And so much of what we talked about early on was to not make this feel like a museum piece, even though it's historical and it's a period piece, really always holding the mirror up to what's happening today.
Mm-hmm. Did the actors, did you guys want
Yeah, I wanna hear what they thought.
Yeah. He laughs before he answers.
I was terrified. I don't know how to put it. I was like genuinely like shocked, and I think I was just freaking out because I was like, oh my God, I said yes, and here I am. And this was like the first day of shooting, and I was like, these people hate me. I was like, I don't even know what I sound like yet. I don't know if I look like him. I don't know if I can walk like him. I don't know if I have his wit yet. It's so many things that are just like you're trying to process. And then I'm like, so Aaron and I worked together prior to this on Lion King. And because it was during pandemic, we never were in the same room. So it was one of the first times as well where I saw Aaron not on the Zoom camera as a lion. So I also was like trying to process Aaron and then Malcolm and also trying to get myself together. But it was so powerful because I also think that, you know, in the corny actor way, you use it. And I was like, in my own version of this, of my nerves and my anticipation and excitement and trying to see a peer, I was like, that's what Martin probably felt with Malcolm in that moment. And there was so much love and admiration and respect and just also confusion because there's a bunch of cameras around. And like you said, I didn't even know the whole crew of people that weren't supposed to be there were on set that day. And you could feel it. You could feel everyone watching. And that's, you know, the whole world is watching. And you felt that moment and we used it, I guess. Or at least I did. I don't know how you felt.
No, for sure. I share that sentiment. You know, I was terrified, and it was like the first day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, damn, that was the first day, and we were just straight in there. But it felt like a really special moment, and it felt like similar to what being offered the role felt like. It felt like a moment to embrace that and embrace all of those nuances and feelings that you felt with that. And instead of allowing it to prohibit you, try and find a way to allow it to propel you forward. So we leaned into it. You know, I remember really vividly seeing Kel come down the stairs as Dr. Martin Luther King. And in my head, I was like, oh, it's about to go down. I was like, any acting you got, you better use it now, because that man he's coming down and he's ready. So yeah, it was great. It was great. You know, Kelvin's a dear friend of mine. He's a brother of mine, and any opportunity I have to collaborate with him and work with him and learn from him is a gem and is a blessing. So it was a lot of fun, and I'm grateful.
Yeah. You know, at the end of episode 8, Betty talks about MLK and Malcolm X's similarities. It's a really great montage of them showing just that, you know, doing work, family life, etc. I almost wonder if that was something that was born out of that think tank, but I want to start with you ladies about, you know, the significance of really rounding out, you know, all 4 of these characters in that way, and where you guys started from, because I would imagine a lot of this was new material and information for you guys as much as it is for the audience consuming it too.
Are you asking just about that last scene?
Yeah, that last scene, yeah.
Well, that was a lovely little surprise.
Okay.
Because that wasn't supposed to happen.
Right.
And I think that's one of the gifts, that's just, whenever you're a part of a project and you can be gifted with surprises along the way like that, you know that everybody really is tapped in, that nobody is trying to make it a museum piece and say, okay, this is what the story we're gonna tell and this is just how it's gonna be. There was room that as we were filming, that it came across that maybe they end the show with the two women coming together and having their meeting of sorts, right?
Yeah.
Which establishes the long-lasting sisterhood and friendship that they would then have for years to come after their men are taken from them, because it's the only thing. Them and oh, forgive me, who was the other woman? Medgar Evers' wife, Merle Evers. The three of them had this bond that only they understood because of that trauma and that tragedy. So that was a gift. And at that point, it was at the end of filming, so Rue and I had already had this sisterhood and this bond, and getting to see each other and have that moment, it was like, yeah, girl, I see you. You know, and what a gift to end the show with, that we're not just ending on heartbreak either, right? We're ending with hope and understanding that though these men have been taken, their legacies still continue on. And so it was a beautiful, beautiful surprise to receive.
Thank you for that, I love that. Would you like to add to that further?
Jamie said it all. It was definitely a beautiful surprise, and I will say thank you to Damien and Raf, because they, when we first got the original idea of it, by that time we'd been Betty and Coretta for about 5 months, and we were like, we don't know if they need to stay this can be established by a look. And it was out of office, I think it was Sunday evening, and we were like texting, guys, can we have a little Zoom? And we all jumped on, and we were there for an hour, and it's such a privilege and a blessing to be able to be part of the writing process as well in that area. Because like I said, we felt like we had an idea of these women, and so what we ended up with felt very comfortable as the characters themselves. It nice being a nice way to not button it up, but opening the door for what came after. And I love the interaction between them, because like Jamie said, they understood each other. There wasn't much to be said because they lived similar lives, just in separate places. And so it was beautiful to see that coming together that we didn't see for the husbands.
Right.
But we know that the women then came together in real life and had that bond that was unbreakable as they carried on the legacies of their husbands and the movement. So it was a beautiful surprise and a lovely gift. Thanks, guys.
And it's a surprise for me because I didn't know that came so deep into the filming process too. So that really shows you that the research was continuing and the ideation process was continuing throughout that total process. So before we wrap up, I did something that I think went over kind of well when I first interviewed Kelvin and Aaron about this series. And I would love to go down the line and start with you, Damien, and ask you to finish this sentence, especially after working on this project. Malcolm is, Martin is. We're gonna go down the line, so start thinking about what you guys wanna say.
You got it, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, watch this. Watch
Go
this.
ahead. Well, yeah, I'm not gonna know you. Go ahead.
Martin and Malcolm are
There we go.
The representation of American history. And I specifically bold and italicize American history. They're two of the greatest that we've ever had. They made for a fantastic television show that I hope all of you either have seen or will get to see. So that's what they are to me.
Lovely, thank you.
Well, hold on. You got to start with watch this. He set a tone.
I was gonna repeat everything he said there. I feel like Martin and Malcolm are polarizing because there's ideas between who they are, however one chooses to look at them. But at least for me, within that, they're inspiring. And part of what they did and accomplished, and the message and the heart, sweat, blood, and tears that they put within the movement is profound. And I feel there's something that I think all of us within this crowd here that we have right now anyone who's blessed to watch this right now, it's part of what we really set out to do was to provide a piece that was at least somewhat honest, but can allow the audience to be inspired and to become active. And so I would say, personally, part of what Martin and Malcolm are is inspirational, but I would also apply that to Betty and Coretta.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wouldn't just put it with Martin, Malcolm, Betty and Coretta at the same time, hold those same attributes.
I love that. Go ahead, Jamie. You got it. You got it.
Jesus. I'd say they are idols, yes, but human beings. They are you and I. And I think that was very important for this series, that we walk away with the sense of understanding that they're not some removed God-like figures who did something that is so unattainable for the average individual. As Aaron and Kel spoke about the fear of how to honor these men, and recognizing that those fears they probably shared with Malcolm and Martin as well. These were young men who didn't have it all figured out, and yet were compelled enough to start something. And so Malcolm is, and Martin is relatable, hopefully. They were for me.
Yeah.
I felt like I played spades with them in another lifetime.
I love that.
Really hard to add anything to
I know,
what's
I
been
know.
said. Everyone's articulated their views and their truth so eloquently and beautifully. I think if I could add anything, it would be that they are truth, they are selflessness, they are unapologetic, and they embody that philosophy of the time you're waiting for is now. They didn't wait for anybody. They did it there and then, and they did it full force. Yeah.
Beautiful, thank you.
I will just say, Jamie took all my answers from my brain. Girl. I would say Martin and Malcolm are love. And I say that because they had such love for people, for humans, for a movement, for an idea, for a belief, that they gave their lives so that we can all be here today. I know that we sometimes give them godlike attributes, but I do have to recognize that they did do extraordinary things. Nowadays, I speak for myself, I don't know if I could give my life for a cause, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But they were so convinced and so moved by love, I believe, that they did give their lives, put themselves at the forefront, their families suffered, and all that. But I think it's love that I think when I think of both of them, and that conviction, by any means necessary, they had dreams.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say Martin and Malcolm are great listeners. I think that the only way to be able to be as great of teachers and leaders as they were was to be able to actually listen to their communities and the people that they loved. And I think that's sometimes really challenging, because we love to get into our own existence and our own mind, our own consciousness, and indulge in it. And I think what they did was, like, they got out of it and they went back into the people. And then they were able to use the language that they gave them and give it back to them, and be able to strategically place it and empower them and encourage them and love on them. And communication is the best attribute we have as human beings. We can't communicate with each other, we ain't got nothing. So what they were orators because they could communicate, they communicate because they listened. So there you go.
I think it was hard to go first. but I think it's worse to go last. Every beautiful thing has been said, so I'll just keep it short, just in a time where our history is being rewritten and erased, Betty, Coretta, Malcolm, and Martin are necessary to know.
You know, when you asked the question, who is Malcolm is, Martin is, I had something that hit me right away, and then I've had enough time to second guess and doubt. But I'm gonna stay with what my initial idea is, and I'm gonna stay with how Damon kicked it off, which is watch this. Malcolm is Martin. Martin is Malcolm.
That mic drop. Please, guys, keep the applause going.